prayer. Good afternoon, everyone. We are here on Tuesday, the 8th of December for our December Town Council meeting. We are changed it to 5 o'clock with public notice showing such. We will call this meeting to order. We have everyone accounted for. Bridget, Councilman Frazier is not on yet, but we will announce that when she comes on Zoom. If we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we have the invocation. Councilman Toomer.
Let us bow our heads, please. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for everything that you have done for me, for everyone else, watching over us, shining your light for us so that we may see the proper and the right way to go. Lord, I just hope that you continue to bless all of us in this town, all over this nation, all over your world, and make us just more loving, gentle, understanding, and unselfish people. We know you, we love you, and thank you for everything. Amen.
Amen. From the heart. Thank you, Mr. Toomer. Next, we have adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes, Mark?
Sorry, I was on mute.
Not
Yeah,
a problem.
sorry about that. Yes, ma'am. We're going to remove item 4 under presentations, the COVID-19 update,
Okay.
simply because Scott will cover all of that information in his presentation under formal items.
Great. So we will take away 4, even though it will be included in his formal item presentation. Any other changes? Not, is there a motion to accept the amended agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's 4. Bridget did just call me. She's logging in, so she'll be in shortly. Next, we have adoption of the minutes. We have the first set of workshop minutes on October 20th. If there are any changes or notations on that? If not, is there a motion to accept? Somebody?
So moved.
So moved.
We'll do Fred, so moved, and Larry second. Any discussion? All in favor state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Tommy, if maybe you can make sure she's not in a waiting room somewhere, because she was logging in when she called.
Yes, ma'am, I'm waiting.
Thank you. Next, we have council meeting minutes of November 10th, 2020. If there are no changes, is there a motion to accept those?
So moved.
Here, second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. We follow up with 3 presentations under item 6. First is Beaufort County School District of the Month. And do we have the young man here, or are we just talking about him, Kim?
We're just talking.
Okay, so this is a, let me get to him. This is something we've been doing for several years now. And the school district puts aside a vote every month with a character trait, and our whole cluster, all the clusters vote on them. And this one was, the character trait was courage and tolerance. And a young man from River Ridge Academy, Byron Espinoza, received the award for our cluster. So I wanted to give him a shout out. Hopefully when we're back together, we can bring these kids in with us. But Byron, we're very, very proud of you. And I'll read a little bit about it. He was an amazing addition to the gifted and talented class and shows many keys to character. Miss McKenna, his teacher, noticed that Byron's once long hair was shaved. She complimented him during his morning meeting, and in his quiet nature, he said, "Thank you." Byron asked McKenna if she would stay on their Zoom meeting after class. He had something he wanted to tell her. Once all the students had logged off, he shared with her the reason he had shaved his head was that one of his family friends was going through cancer treatment, was starting to lose his hair. Byron let Miss McKenna know that he wanted to support him and didn't want him to feel alone. Being so moved by his act, Miss McKenna asked Byron if she could share it with his classmates. After much thought, he humbly agreed. He smiled big the next day when Ms. McKenna shared his good deed and was chosen as his class daily student shout out for courage. The other students were equally, if not more, impressed with his courageous act. So they were so proud of him, and that was one of the keys of why he was nominated. So very proud of him. Next we have, sorry, I'm going on two different laptops here. Next we have two RDA fund presentations. The first is Hargray Rural Development Advanced RDA funds to the town of Bluffton. And the second is Palmetto Electric. And I'll just read through a little bit about both of them. There are local utility providers, and the awards are for Rural Development Act utility tax credits. And in lieu of a portion of their annual state income tax obligations, they have the opportunity to support local and regional economic development initiatives through awards, commonly referred to as the Rural Development Act utility tax credits, of up to $400,000 to qualified projects. Buckwalter is a qualified economic development project due to its designation as a multi-county industrial park. So the first one is Hargray, and it is, this one is in the amount of $100,465. Hargray Communications Group awarded this to us for public infrastructure improvements at Buckwalter Place. They've supported Buckwalter Place for years, and we are up to $910,000 for tax credit money that we have been given by Hargray, and that's for land acquisition and public infrastructure improvements. We're so grateful for Hargray to always pay attention to our area and what we're trying to do in this. And we just, on behalf of council staff and all of Bluffton, we thank you wholeheartedly. The second is from our Palmetto Electric Cooperative, and this award is in the amount of $60,000. They've supported Buckwalter Place the same way, and over the years of us getting these credits, we have totaled approximately $2.2 million for Evacor Building 1 site prep, land acquisition, and public infrastructure, and construction of over $850,000 of vital utility infrastructure. This puts tonight's $60,000 puts us well over $3 million, and Palmetto Electric has been a partner of ours forever, and again sees the necessity for economic development in this town. And on behalf of council and on behalf of all of us, we do thank Palmetto Electric. So I wish you were here in person to say a few words, but we will get you in person soon. Next, we have public comment. Public comment is 3 minutes in length. Currently, we do it electronically. You have up until 2 hours before a meeting to submit electronically. Our town clerk will read the public comment. She's very good. She hasn't gone over yet. And some have been very long, and we do try to get everything in for the record. And we do not comment on Facebook comments throughout council meetings like some municipalities and counties do across the state. We do not. So if you'd like to make a comment on anything we're doing, you must abide by the town of Bluffton's rules, which is online. And until we meet again in person, our town clerk will read the public comments. So Kim, you are up. And do we have public comment tonight?
We have 2 of them.
Okay.
All right. The first one is Clarice Gibbons Allen from 101 Huntley Court in Bluffton. I live in Beaufort County and reside in Sun City. Although I'm not a resident of Bluffton, I shop, receive services from Bluffton businesses, and worship at Campbell Chapel AME Church in Bluffton. COVID-19 is a deadly communicable novel virus. I personally have experienced the loss of a friend and others within my family who contracted the disease earlier this year. One thing for sure is that it is deadly. The longer we stay in this nightmare, the more we know about it. We know that wearing masks, practicing safe distancing, using hand hygiene, and limiting exposure to others in small numbers are practices that work in reducing the spread. This is all we have to do to defend ourselves. Some people are better at self-discipline than others, and for that reason, government's role to protect the whole is necessary through public health policy and law as the virus continues to significantly impact this community. When an individual's lack of discipline spills over to affect my right of life, then I have a problem with it. Therefore, I support the emergency ordinance requiring individuals to wear face coverings and to take related protections in light of this ongoing pandemic. And second is Juliana Smith of 1212 King Street in Beaufort. Bluffton Town Council members, thank you for the opportunity to comment on behalf of the Coastal Conservation League regarding the proposal to adopt the Southern Lowcountry Post-Construction Stormwater Ordinance and Southern Lowcountry Stormwater Design Manual. Since 2017, the Southern Lowcountry's Regional Board and collective staff members have been working toward a regional and cooperative effort to improve stormwater standards in order to better protect water quality in our watersheds and, by proxy, improve the quality of life for our communities. Those efforts have accumulated in the ordinance and design manual before you this evening, which include beneficial changes that align with the recommendations from both Dr. Eric Monte's most recent research and the recently published water quality models for the May River watershed. The ordinance and design manual take a critical regional approach that will improve water quality by preserving the enhancing forested wetlands and tree canopy, discouraging clear cutting, prioritizing green infrastructure and low impact development standards, supporting the incorporation of natural areas and open spaces in new development projects, and providing long-term maintenance of implemented stormwater management systems throughout the life of development projects. Each of these initiatives will improve water quality on the watershed scale by increasing natural filtration and resisting topographical and hydrological alteration of our landscapes, thereby reducing contamination of important water bodies like the May River. We at the Coastal Conservation League support regional adoption of the new ordinance and design manual and appreciate your and staff's leadership in protecting the May River watershed and encouraging regional cooperation to protect other local watersheds. That was a mouthful. That's it.
There. Thank you, Kim. Public comment is now closed. We are moving on to communications from mayor and council. Anything from council at this moment? Welcome, Bridget. We have a unanimous council now. Thank you, Bridget. Sorry, the time was wrong for you, but welcome in. Anything from council? Mr. Wood.
I just want to thank the staff for an outstanding job. The Christmas parade, I was just bowled over and totally amazed by the multitude. Must have been hundreds and hundreds of cars came through on Saturday. They lifted the spirits of this whole community, and I got to act like a child myself watching those little kids come by. And it was just a wonderful event. And then also I want to remind people, tomorrow at 9:15 in the morning on the Hilton Head Island Bluffton Chamber site, there's a star going to be interviewed called Chief Price tomorrow morning. You don't want to miss that if you want to get to know the chief better. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. Anyone else?
Yeah,
I
Mayor.
just want to wish every, oh, I'm sorry, Bridget.
No, you're fine. Let's do
Larry.
Bridget, you go up. Then Larry.
I just wanted to echo the sentiments of Councilman Wood and thank town staff for putting off another successful event, and just thanking the community for a great parade that we had on this past weekend. It indeed was something that lifted everyone's spirits, and it just went really well, and I was grateful to be a part of it.
Thank you. Larry, you're up.
Yeah, Ditto did the same. I think it was an awesome turnout. I was actually totally amazed at the amount of people that took part and came by and brought the kids and all like that. So it was an awesome thing, in my opinion. And I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and we won't see each other for a while here now, probably because we'll all be busy with our own families. But Merry Christmas, and let's look for a bright 2021.
Yes. Amen. Anyone else?
Everything has already been said. So
It's called ditto.
ditto, Merry Christmas, and stay safe.
Yeah. I just can't thank staff enough. Mark, you have an amazing staff. I want to give a shout out to Mark too. I had several people call me. He doesn't even know. I didn't tell him this. It said, talking about the Wright family property, talking about the Martin property, the parade. And I said, well, it's our town manager. And they're like, he doesn't get enough credit. And I agree. And Mark, you handle everyone so well. You've been a rock star during this crazy world that we know nothing about even till today. And just a lot of thanks. I actually ran into our Commissioner of Agriculture yesterday, and he was here for the Heritage. Oh, sorry. Well, there you go. He was here for the Heritage Congressional Cup and stopped by and looked at Low Country Fresh Market and Cafe. And what a fan we have in our agriculture department with our farmers market, Larry, with your oystering, with this new Low Country market and helping the Gullah farmers. It was really exciting to see his enthusiasm. He has family. His kids are married to local Bluftonians, the Malfrises. So he's here a good bit. Being a farmer's daughter, it just gives me pride to see a lot of the enhancement of our farmers. I promise you, we were 6 feet away. Got a little bit of grief posting that picture on Facebook, but we were 6 feet away. Mark and I were like 12 to 18 feet away, unless they were in their own little group, which the 3 of them had done necessary protocol to stay apart. So I do hate that the negativity came out on a really amazing, exciting time with our farmers in the Low Country. Merry Christmas as well. And we are going to scoot on through. Next are formal agenda items. Natalie, you were up. We had an ATAX meeting, and we have recommendations for the quarter ending September 30th, 2020. And you were there, you go. And we are going to scoot on through.
I'm on mute. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Town Council. You have before you the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee recommendations for quarter ending September 30th, 2020. There is one application this quarter for your consideration with $6,000 being requested. Currently, there is $1,138,992 available for distribution. This amount is split between state and local ATAX funds. The request before you is for the Bravo Piano Festival concert by the Hilton Head Symphony Orchestra. The concert is currently scheduled for Friday, March 12th, 2021, with a backup date of June 11th, 2021, and it will be held at Campbell Chapel AME Church. The concert is titled Tracing the Gullah Geechee Influence on American Jazz and Blues. Excuse me. The organization is requesting $4,000 for advertising and $2,000 in support of facilities for civic and cultural events expenses. And the committee has recommended to fully fund the eligible requested amount. Trying to see if Sam Britt, the chair of ATAC, or Alan Jordan, the president and CEO.
Alan is on.
Okay.
Yep. I don't see Sam Britt, but I do see Alan.
Okay.
Sam is joining now.
Okay. Do y'all have questions of Alan or soon to be Sam or Natalie on this?
I do.
Fred, Mr. Hamilton?
Is this a one-day event?
It is a week-long festival with one day being held in Bluffton.
That's what I mean, one-day event in Bluffton.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and how is Bluffton tourism and is going to benefit from this?
I'm not sure. I don't know if Mr. Jordan would like to answer.
Alan, you're muted.
And how is Bluffton?
Oh, Alan, if you're watching Facebook, you're gonna have to cut that off because it's about 15 seconds behind us.
Right, I did do that.
Good.
There we go. Oops. Oh, Jesus.
Did you hear the question from Mr. Hamilton?
I did not.
Okay, he asked Fred, would you like to say it again?
Yes, how is Bluffton tourism, the hotels or restaurants going to benefit from this?
Well, certainly, we will encourage people to dine before the concert takes place. But as Natalie mentioned, it is part of a week-long festival, and the International Piano Competition traditionally draws about 50% of its audience from outside of the area. So they will be coming, they will be staying in hotels, hopefully some in Bluffton, probably some on Hilton Head also.
What's the time? I'm sorry, Fred.
That's all I have.
What's the time of the concert?
It is an evening concert, 7:30.
Okay. Is it a place where you're supporting place, or do we have access to those tickets that we can let them know there are restaurants in town for them to dine before the
Oh,
concert?
absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have two of them.
Uh-huh.
How much are the tickets?
The tickets are going to be $25 a piece, and we are going to be offering discounts to members of the Campbell Chapel AME Church. We see this as part of a larger partnership with Campbell Chapel, and of course, with COVID happening, we have been also, I should mention that we have a plan B, since this concert is scheduled to happen in March and we're not certain we'll be able to have concerts by then. We have made arrangements to move the entire festival to early June if we have to. And if we move to early June, one of the concerts planned currently on Hilton Head Island would probably also be moved to Campbell Chapel. So we'd actually have two events in June.
Okay, that you just answered my second question. Just to follow up, if I guess you're waiting on social distancing and mask requirements that we're under now to go away. Is that the idea?
We could still do the concert with distancing in the audience. It's not a large performance group, so they could be distanced on stage. And certainly we would require everybody in attendance to wear a mask. Those performing might not be able to wear it to perform, the singers, but we would certainly require masks if that was still a requirement of the town. And we'd probably encourage it. I think our audience would want to adhere to that anyway.
Okay, my next follow-up question is, if the way it's looking right now, just looking into the future with my eyes, I don't see March being a whole lot different. I hope and pray it is, but your money, your $4,000 for the advertising and promotion of it, if the date changes, does that make sense to plan for something when the future is as cloudy as ours is right now? I guess I would say.
I mean, yes, we're dealing with these kinds of things for all of our presentations. And, you know, regarding this concert in particular, we will know, I would say, before the end of this calendar year, whether or not we're going to be able to have the festival in March. And if we won't, then we will announce it for June, and then we'll start ramping up with the promotion then.
Okay, thank you.
We've supported you in the past with the performance at Oscar Fraser. Is this the next year version of what we did last year?
No, it's not actually. Our original intention, we had been working with the Seafood Festival to have an outdoor performance at the Martin Family Park in October.
Okay.
And we had been working with Mary O'Neill on this. And of course, when it was announced that the festival couldn't happen, we already started talking about October of 2021. But again, we're waiting to see whether it's possible to do a concert and to do the Seafood Festival in October. But we would very much love to be able to have a free outdoor concert in October,
Right.
in addition to this.
And it was well received. That's what I was wondering. Any other questions of Natalie, Sam, or Alan? Let's see. Dan or Bridget, anything? Okay.
No, not for me.
Okay. Well, this is our only application. It's for $6,000. Is there a motion? Amount requested 6, amount recommended 6. Is there a motion to accept the recommendation for the Hilton Head Symphony Orchestra Bravo Piano Festival Concert by the ATAX Committee?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Super. Thank you, Alan, for coming. Sam, thank you very much. And I can't stress enough for the nonprofits, if there are events that could be had currently, to really consider applying. Call Natalie at the town to or go online to get information. You must be a nonprofit, but we'll work very closely with you to make sure we can get your application through.
Thank you very much for your support, and we'll make sure you all know the exact day and time if it has to change.
Thank you. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Next is number 2, consideration of an ordinance to amend certain provisions of the Town of Bluffton Code ordinances to authorize meetings to be held telephonic or by electronic means and matters related thereto. This is second reading. Were there any requests of changes between last month and now, Scott?
No, ma'am, there were no requests for changes.
Okay, so there have been no changes. Are there any questions of Scott on this particular item? It's a second and final reading, and it will go into effect beginning tomorrow. If not, is there a motion to move to approve an ordinance to amend certain provisions of the Town of Bluffton Code of Ordinances to authorize meetings to be held by telephonic or other electronic means and matters related thereto as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? As we said last month, this is really to help us forever and a day. If one of us is out of town, can't make it to a council meeting because they're sick, or maybe they want to be part of it, but there was an evacuation of hurricane matters or anything, that we can all meet together or electronically. If we start going back to meeting in person, 2021, anyone who just has a hesitancy for that has the ability to get on Zoom and be as present as they were if they were in attendance. So I think it's a great idea from staff. Thanks for putting this together. No other discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you, Scott, on that.
You're welcome.
Next is consideration of emergency ordinance of the Town of Bluffton extending the requiring of individuals to wear masks, face coverings in light of COVID-19 pandemic and matters related thereto. Scott, you are up.
Well, good evening again, Mayor and Council. I'm going to start before I get into that. We moved this item from presentations to showing this to you right before we do the first emergency ordinance for masking. And these are the numbers that you have asked us to present the last couple of meetings and that we will continue to bring to you monthly. And this is a slide again that depicts the 2-week cases reported per 100,000 population for Beaufort County. And as you can see, the latest 2-week period from November 18 to December 2nd has us still on the rise. And now we're at a rate of 330 cases per 100,000 population, which places us in the high incidence category. We have not been at this rate, if I would draw a line straight over, since about the 3rd week of August. And so as you can see, we are in a steady climb. To show you what the numbers look like for Bluffton zip codes. Again, this is for zip codes 29909 and 29910. These are the number of cases that have been reported in the same 2-week periods for those zip codes. And as you can see, we have the same trajectory going. We have cases on the rise again that we haven't seen since around the August timeframe. And we are steadily climbing. If I were to do a capture at this moment as to what they are, we would be trending right around in this area for total cases. Any questions on those?
Any questions of council? Okay. Thank you, Scott, for that.
You're welcome. We'll go right into the first ordinance. Give me just a moment to pull it up here. So the first emergency ordinance for your consideration this evening is the emergency ordinance that pertains to the requirement for face coverings in public settings. We have not changed any of the provisions of this ordinance since we've renewed it several times. The latest ordinance we renewed a couple of months ago, and it expires on the 13th of December. If we renew this ordinance again, it would become effective on the 13th of December, and it would expire on the 12th of February 2021. Again, it takes a supermajority to pass this because it is an emergency ordinance, 1 reading, so it takes 4 out of 5 votes of council for this to become effective.
Any questions of council to Scott? Okay. If not, is there a motion to approve the emergency ordinance of the town of Bluffton, South Carolina, requiring individuals to wear face coverings in certain circumstances in light of COVID-19 pandemic and matters related thereto and severability?
I make that motion, but I don't understand what it means by in certain circumstances.
Make the motion, let's second it, and then we'll discuss, okay? There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Now discussion. Scott, is that not the same as what's been in the past, or why?
Yes, Mayor, it's the same that it's been the last 3 times that it's been renewed. The certain circumstances refers to, Councilman Hamilton, just the situations in which the face coverings are required. And Section 2 covers the requirements for face coverings. All persons entering any building open to the public in town must wear a face covering. All restaurants, retail establishments of every description, salons, grocery stores, and pharmacies in the limits of town shall require their employees to wear a face covering. And this applies to any area where the general public is also allowed. And then there are several exemptions that are stated. Again, these are as they have been since you first enacted this ordinance on July 1st.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Hamilton?
Yeah, I never pay attention to circumstances because I think all circumstances are the same.
I guess it was to not have a motion 5 pages long. Is it understood that certain circumstances reflects those 3 paragraphs? Is what I guess.
Yes, that's understood.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Any other discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
Are you still up? Let's
I
see.
am still up. You have me for
Are
one more.
you number 4? Item 4, consideration of an emergency ordinance of the town of Bluffton to authorize the town manager to develop and enact such plans and policies needed to ensure continuity in the delivery of government services in light of COVID-19.
Thank you. This ordinance, again, just as a reminder, is the emergency ordinance that allows for modified operations of the town to include electronic meetings and provide special authorization to the town manager to exercise certain provisions under emergency circumstances. The most recent renewal of this ordinance was on October 13th. At that time, you changed some of the authorization for town managers. There have been no changes to this emergency ordinance between that reading and this one, with the exception of we are deleting the section that pertains to electronic meetings because you have just codified the ability for the town to have electronic meetings whenever it is desired. It does not have to be an emergency circumstance anymore to have an electronic meeting because you just passed on second and final reading our electronic meeting ordinance. So the section of this emergency ordinance that pertains to electronic meetings has been rescinded in this latest version of the emergency ordinance. Everything else remains exactly the same as it was when you passed it unanimously 2 months ago.
Okay. Great. Any questions of Scott on this item? Okay. If no questions, is there a motion to approve the emergency ordinance of the town of Bluffton, continuing the suspension of normal operating procedures of the town of Bluffton town council meetings and other town of Bluffton public meetings, and modifying the authority of town manager to develop and act such plans and policies needed to ensure continuity of the delivery of government services in light of COVID-19 outbreak?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you, Scott, for your work on all of that.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Moving on, Brian McElwee is feeling under the weather, so we have Kim Jones tonight, and it's item number 5, consideration of an ordinance to amend the Town of Bluffton Code of Ordinances, Chapter 23, Article 3, Article 5, and Article 9, related to adopting the Southern Lowcountry Post-Construction Stormwater Ordinance and Stormwater Design Manual. This is first reading, and Kim, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's good to see all of you. Just confirming that you are seeing my screen properly.
We are.
Perfect, thank you. You have before you more detail in your staff packet and what's provided online. However, I have a short presentation to go over to give you some background on the adoption process of the Southern Lowcountry Post-Construction Stormwater Ordinance and Southern Lowcountry Stormwater Design Manual for first reading this evening. Quickly, as you already presented, Mayor, the proposed amendments are dealing with the Town of Bluffton Code of Ordinances, Chapter 25, Unified Development Ordinance, in particular, Article 3, changes to the application process, specifically in Article 5, Design Standards, the Stormwater Management section, and then also Article 9, Definitions and Interpretations, all of which are relating to adapting and adopting the Southern Lowcountry Post-Construction Stormwater Ordinance and Design Manual into our structure. To provide you and the public a little bit of a reminder of how we got here, why we're here. This began back in 2017 as a regional effort through the Southern Lowcountry Board, or SoLoCo, which is constituted of Hardyville, Town of Bluffton, Town of Ridgeland, Town of Hilton Head Island, Town of Yemassee, Beaufort County, and Jasper County. And this in general is a regional approach to address quality of life issues that affect all of our communities and our citizens, and come up with actionable plans to mitigate these challenges that we might see. One of the very first challenges that was brought forth by the SoLoCo board was stormwater management and how it can adversely impact water quality, which is so integral to our quality of life for all of our citizens. Back in 2017, SoLoCo asked each of the participants in the board to have staff dedicated to address this issue and compare what were the most stringent stormwater design standards at the time that we might effectively adopt those across the region for regional consistency for stormwater management. The Stormwater Technical Subcommittee, which staff members came back with a recommendation in 2017 to the SoLoCo board that perhaps the most restrictive, highest stormwater standards were not necessarily the best at the time, because state of knowledge has changed. Stormwater runoff does not follow political boundaries, and one set of standards does not apply to every set of watershed that we have there. Saltwater and freshwater needs are very different. Thus, the group recommended back to SOLOCO that we take a partnership collaborative approach in this regional ordinance and come up with a set of requirements and design standards that are current with state of knowledge, and do this with a consultant team to have consistent stormwater ordinance and design manual with stakeholder input. The project partners differ from the SOLOCO board constituents, as you may notice. Specifically, we have Beaufort County and Jasper County. We have the city of Beaufort, the town of Bluffton, the city of Hardyville, the town of Port Royal, and the town of Yemassee, who agreed to partner at the outset in 2017 in this effort. And all are still partners to this day. Along the lines as well from the town's perspective and our strategic planning process, this is also an initiative that arose from the strategic plan for fiscal years 2019-2020, which included a review of the May River Watershed Action Plan update and policies, including the Stormwater Ordinance and Design Manual. We started and initiated the project back in December of 2018, so this has been ongoing for 2 years now. And it initiated under the lead of Center for Watershed Protection, seeking all design community, engineering community, what have you, input on the existing stormwater ordinances, what was working, what wasn't working. So we had that framework from the outset. Over the next year and a half, when we got the draft document, that was put out for public comment, again, including technical review for well over a month, about a month and a half, from the January 6th of this year until the end of February to February 27th. Over that time period, we received approximately 125 public comments that the committee addressed, leaving approximately 28 that were to be determined. So the majority of the comments were addressed that were brought forward at that time. Additionally, this was pre-COVID, right? And we were able to actually have public meetings. We held them both north of the Broad, south of the Broad, in Jasper County, at the city of Hardyville, and in the town of Bluffton over a span of a week or so. Additionally, staff presented the update of this whole process to SOLOCO in July. We went to Planning Commission for a workshop in August of this year. We got a unanimous May River Watershed Action Plan recommendation to Planning Commission for adoption on August 27th. There was Town Council workshop of this item in October, and then Planning Commission recommendation to Town Council October 28th of this year. So lots of time for public review and implementation of the process. This is a very hefty document. So again, summarizing what is proposed to be changed or amended in the UDO, specifically are changes in the application process, Article 3, 310, and 313, which is implementing a new stormwater surety that is separate from the development surety. Currently, when we CO, we're at 75% completion, and that doesn't mean that we're 100% closed out on a project for stormwater. So we need to be able to follow that through. That big changes obviously are within the stormwater section, 510 of UDO Article 5 design standards. This was taking the model ordinance that was the regional SOLOCO ordinance and integrating it into our existing structure for 510. Along with that, there are new terminologies included, specifically that deal with grading and better site design to ensure that we were protecting our natural resources to the highest level possible. So there are changes in definitions and interpretation as well. In addition to not only the ordinance, there is a design manual that is roughly about 350, 400 pages of technical information. At this point in time, I am happy to go through the proposed red line changes if you'd like for the ordinance, or I've got some bookmark options. I am at your whim as to how you would like to go through in more detail, or at what level of detail you'd like to review any of the proposed UDO edits.
Thank you, Kim. I'll jump in with Larry being on WAPAC. He also can chime in on their thoughts. What would y'all like for her to highlight? Do you want to see the Planning Commission's recommendations? How would you like her to do this? Or is this enough? Okay. What would you go through the Planning Commission and
Certainly, and I can come back if there are questions. We can bounce out and look at more detail if so. Happy to do so. So moving along. When we look through the review criteria, obviously for any changes that come forward for the UDO, we're looking for consistency with the comp plan. Staff findings are that what is proposed is definitely consistent with the comprehensive plan. Consistent with all of the demographic changes, prevailing trends, and recognized best planning practices. This definitely brings us into state of knowledge for stormwater practices for planning and design. Protecting, and this was very clear from council and our constituents, protecting the health, safety, welfare of Bluffton and its citizens. This surely is in line with that as well. No effect on public services and no changes to applications manual. So it is in line with all of the review criteria. From Planning Commission, following WAPAC's unanimous recommendation on August 27th, Planning Commission made a recommendation that was unanimous at October 28th with no comment for adoption to Town Council on first reading.
Thank you.
Certainly.
great. Okay, any questions of council for Kim? Larry, anything you want to give from your committee?
No, as she's already said, we've been looking at this and studying it and agree with it unanimously. So
Okay.
I'm moving on.
Great. No other questions? I appreciate your input on that, Larry. You represent us on that committee, and I appreciate your recommendation to us on that.
Mayor, I have a question,
Mm-hmm.
please. Kim, on the, and I may be off track here. The water quality issues have been, we've been talking about more open space and more trees saved, and et cetera. Is any of that addressed in the stormwater ordinance? Because now I know we're addressing it in other ways, but I was just curious if there was a tie-in, a relationship there.
Sure. It surely is. One of the big changes is ensuring that we're doing better site design practices. And that is ensuring that we're working with natural features of the land, trying to minimize mass grading, trying to preserve stands of natural vegetation, working with the natural features of a site to the maximum extent practicable. Additionally, we're increasing the standards that are required for shellfish harvesting classified waters. There are more stringent standards applied to those watersheds, say, than some inland water bodies in rural Jasper County. They don't require the same levels of protection that shellfish harvesting water does, that say portions of the Savannah River for drinking water do. So yes, sir, those watershed needs are taken into consideration in the design manual criteria.
Any other questions? Does this all, I know we went through So Loco, is this something that's going to go on to the county?
Yes, ma'am. So currently we are in parallel tracks between the
Okay.
county and the town of Bluffton to adopt and implement this ordinance. We are the leaders of our partners. The other partners have all confirmed through So Loco partnership and representation that they do and will plan to adopt this ordinance as well, so that we are maintaining that regional effort and treatment of stormwater management.
Super. Any other questions? This is first reading. If you happen to miss something that you've looked at in this packet, feel free to reach out to Kim or Brian, and we can get it answered by next month. No other questions? Is there a motion to approve on first reading of amendments to the Town of Bluffton Code of Ordinances, Chapter 23, UDO, Article 3, Application Process, Article 5, Design Standards, Section 510, Stormwater Management, and Article 9, Definitions and Interpretation related to adoption of the Southern Lowcountry Post-Construction Stormwater Ordinance and Southern Lowcountry Stormwater Design Manual?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? So excited we're all on the same page, our county and our town, and others may take the decision to join with us. I don't know that I've ever had this happen as long as I've been on council. So very excited to see, and great job. And thank you to WAPAC. Any other discussion?
Mayor, I would like to throw in just a little cue there. Our WAPAC committee is barring myself, a group of very intelligent, caring Bluffton people with a lot of heart and a lot of desire to protect everything and to make our town just like I feel this council is. Their hearts are in the right place. We talk about stuff. We beat Kim up every time she says something, about this and that. We pick it apart. And I can only say thanks to them. I feel really, really comfortable with the decisions or the recommendations that we make to us, is being looked at and thought about and moving forward. We're not sitting there arguing about everything. We're rolling the ball forward, and that's why we're doing good things, and that helps council.
It sure does. Thank you. Any other discussion? I'll call for the vote. All in favor, state by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you, Kim, for standing in. You did an awesome job, and it's good to see you.
Good to see all of you. Merry Christmas, y'all.
Merry Christmas, and we'll see you next month on the second reading. Item number 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 are all under one presentation. So I know y'all are ready to throw stones at me this month, but I was told it's one presentation, and then we had to separate it out into individual votes. So Heather, you are up on number 6, consideration of an ordinance approving an amendment to the Town of Bluffton comp plan to amend the future annexation area to include approximately 61.093 acres of land located at 323 Fording Island Road, Beaufort County, tax map numbers as mentioned, and change said property's future land use designation from civic institutional to medium density commercial. This is first reading, and Heather, you've got it. And I think do we have someone that's coming in? Is Walter or the applicant coming in?
Yes, we do. We should have Kevin Icard is here to answer technical questions. Planning and Community Development Manager, y'all know, to answer some technical questions, as his staff did a great deal of this analysis over the past, I believe, 18 months. And we also have Walter Nestor, the agent for the owners and applicants in the waiting room as well. They may have already been let in now, but they should be here as well to answer any questions y'all may have or add any additional information.
And I see a Brent Heathcott. That's not a normal name I've normally seen. Mr. Lombardo, I just know that name. And I see Walter. And then there's a Fowler. Is that part of this presentation?
I believe so.
Okay, just wanted everyone to understand the participants if they were looking like I was looking. Okay, go.
Okay, and can you see my presentation here on the screen? Okay,
Yes.
Perfect. So just like you said, this is one presentation because all of these, the next 5 agenda items are related to the initial annexation request for the St. Gregory the Great property. So I'm going to go through all of that and obviously can stop and answer any questions as you go through. But again, just because of that initial annexation request, there's a lot of additional amendments that are being requested as a result of that. Okay, just to orient ourselves, this is the the property here, you can see my little purple cursor here. This is what we refer to as the St. Gregory the Great campus. So, oops, sorry. So the blue line there, south of Fording Island Road, US 278 and Buckwalter Parkway, that's where that property sits, approximately 60 acres. So again, this is all the next several agenda items are a result of a request for annexation back in July of 2019. At that initial application, the annexation manual does require an intent to annex as first action by town council, which town council, you all did recommend approval of that ordinance for that intent to annex. So since that was approved, then it goes through the process, and why I'm ultimately here this evening making the presentation. And I'll provide additional details on all of that as I go through. Again, when they submitted that zoning map, they also submitted a concurrent zoning map amendment, because with an annexation request, in addition to all annexation requests, you need to put a zoning designation on that property. So that came forward at the time as a general mixed use district, as well as the highway corridor overlay district. Going through the process, there was recommendations that rather than the general mixed use district, that because it is also adjacent to the Buckwalter plan unit development, that may be a more appropriate request and zoning designation, which again resulted in some more applications and amendments as we go through. Again, at the August 13th, 2019 meeting, there was the intent to annex request. And at the time, you did consider revising that zoning map amendment to, again, go into the Buckwalter Plan Unit Development District, the PUD district, rather than that general mixed use district. So the applicant did that. They worked on revisions to that application and that zoning map amendment, and brought forward the next 5 applications as listed there, which all include the PUD text amendment for Buckwalter, development agreement amendment, concept plan amendment, as well as future applications, should this move forward, would also result in an initial master plan for consideration, ultimately approval by town council. This here is the following permitted land uses that would be allowed in the Buckwalter PUD, and what are they requesting. Again, that's all on the screen here, including a mix of residential, hotel, institutional, and civic, which is what the church and school is classified as currently, multifamily residential, as well as neighborhood commercial. I know this is a little bit difficult to read. It is in the packet, and I can zoom in however you'd like, but this is the comparison of what is currently permitted in Beaufort County. So that is currently a C3 neighborhood mixed use district, and what this land use tract in the Buckwalter PUD would allow. So you can see there the P's in the column for permitted, the dashes would be not permitted, and I don't think I see any conditional or TCP as part of that new proposal. Again, this is just a continuation of that long list of possible land uses for the current district that's in the county, as well as what's proposed as part of the PUD. So going through the process, the Planning Commission did have a workshop on all of the amendments, and this just outlines, I won't, unless you'd like me to stop on any, this just outlines the Planning Commission's questions they had again at the workshop setting, and the responses and how it was addressed. So just going through what's currently allowed in the Beaufort County zoning district. Again, it's a little bit form-based code. It's a little bit difficult without a detailed site plan, just because of the rules and regulations in place at the time. So that was discussed. And again, the consideration then evolved to affordable housing in the discussion on how that would be addressed. And again, just continuing forward with if there were conditions for affordable housing, how that would move forward. And again, this is all the discussion that was included as part of that workshop. The one thing I would like to highlight is that the proposal as it's been submitted is that whatever units, again, should this move forward, are designated for this tract, that they would not be allowed to be transferred outside of the St. Gregory land use tract And if they were proposed to do that, it would be an amendment to the Buckwalter Development Agreement. Questions about height and setbacks were addressed. And going through just again the concept plan as far as deviations and how that would be addressed moving forward. And again, just wanted to include this just as far as how we got here and just should you have similar questions or details of the project moving forward. There was lots of questions about traffic and a traffic impact analysis. And because of the current conditions, there were some conditions, and I'll get through further in the presentation as far as the timing of when the traffic impact analysis should be completed, and to make sure that there are accurate traffic counts for school when that's in session, and just the provisions of when that's addressed. And again, they had lots of discussions about buffers and trees and making sure that the vegetative buffers would remain. Also acknowledging that there are some utility easements that would possibly have to be cleared for maintenance and other issues. Addressed the commercial uses as far as, again, the St. Gregory, this particular land use tract, the civic and institutional component of it, as well as, again, that neighborhood commercial area, which I'll show you on a map in a moment. And then this is ultimately as part of the zoning map amendment, and what is being proposed as far as the amendments for the development rights is proposed to include a little bit over 10 acres of general commercial, and then 150 residential dwelling units. Their initial request was much higher, but now they're requesting that 150 units. And again, this would not be allowed to be transferred outside of this tract without an additional amendment to the development agreement. So after the workshop, they addressed again, when they addressed those questions and comments, and at a public hearing on October 28th, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of the following applications, and that was just approval based on the request. So the initial annexation petition, which should this move forward, second and public hearing would follow later, marry all together, because you've already heard that first reading. The comprehensive plan amendment, which I will get into, the Buckwalter Development Agreement, as well as the zoning map amendment. They did recommend approval with conditions of the Buckwalter Development Agreement amendment, as well as the Buckwalter Concept Plan amendment. And those conditions were that at that time, they stated it was not feasible to conduct an accurate traffic impact analysis. However, that would be required to be submitted prior to the issuance and approval of any development permits for the tract moving forward. Again, I've already touched on this. This is the overall campus is approximately 60 acres, with the 50-acre portion for the expansion of the Catholic Church and School campus. There is an area that's contemplated for a pump station, and the remaining acres for out parcels and uses, which I've outlined at the very beginning, that list of what could be built there. This is just a very preliminary master plan for the development as they moved forward. Again, should the application and project move forward, this is what I understand to be the basis of what they would further develop for an initial master plan. And you can see that neighborhood commercial area towards the front and that yellow area, and then the existing buildings and proposed expansions throughout the site. Just a background here as far as the zone. I know we're not necessarily acting on the annexation request this evening, but again, everything follows that initial request. This is the Beaufort County zoning map here. In yellow, the property we're talking about. The properties in the green shaded area is what's currently in the town limits, again, in that Buckwalter PUD. Just for reference, May River Dermatology is the building right across the street right here. Here's just the neighboring districts, current uses as far as what's in the vicinity, Eagles Point PUD, as well as Berkeley Hall Plantation. And again, that adjacent property owner's map, just to give you some more reference. The properties are contiguous to the town's municipal boundaries. However, the properties are just outside of that future annexation map boundary, that is. And so what was discussed is there's the line right here along Fording Island Road. So the question was, does that line, should it have included both sides of Fording Island Road? Just to make sure everything was clear and moving forward, there were some other changes to the comprehensive plan that needed to be accomplished for the applicant to further the application. So the future annexation boundary map is requested to change to acknowledge both sides of the road right there. Furthermore, the future land use map in the comprehensive plan identifies the property as civic and institutional. The description is listed below, which is essentially what is currently developed on the property. And here shows that blue area as far as that civic institutional designation. In the growth framework map, it further identifies the village place type, and this is just a description of what that village place type includes, and it does state that it includes a mixed-use development at the intersection of larger neighborhoods and along corridors. This shows the area in that future, the growth framework map here. You can see it in the red dotted line and just a call out here closer. So again, that bubble essentially stops at Fording Island Road there. And so the thought was it stopped at that municipal limits, the current municipal limits. So the first request as we go through the actionable items on the agenda is what's on the screen in front of you, and that's the comprehensive plan amendment request. And that's to, like I just stated, to amend that future annexation boundary to include this parcel, as well as change the property's designation of that future land use from civic institutional to medium intensity commercial. So that would be the first action item for you to consider at the end of the presentation. Again, I won't go through all of this, but there was comprehensive plan review criteria that's considered for the amendment. So this was all reviewed and analyzed with the submitted documents from the applicant by town staff, as well as input from the Planning Commission and ultimately their recommendation moving forward. And again, just to reiterate, all of this is coming about because of the request for that annexation of that property. And the annexation review criteria that was considered at that intent to annexation, intent to annex first reading. And I have all of that information here should you want to revisit any of the information that was presented. And again, all of this will be, again, should it move forward, would be presented and further reviewed and analyzed at public hearing and second and final reading. So moving forward, the next request that would be considered would be the amendment to the Buckwalter Plan Unit Development text to incorporate the new land use tract, which would be known as St. Gregory the Great Tract. And again, this is that zoning map amendment request for the little bit over 61 acres. And that would be to rezone it to the Buckwalter Plan Unit Development subject to the new land use tract of St. Gregory the Great. Again, the review criteria for the zoning map amendment has been reviewed and recommended for approval. And again, I'm happy to stop. I know there's a lot of information. I'm happy to stop wherever or to revisit when you have any questions.
Real quick, do y'all want
Sure.
to go through all of this and then go back for questions? Or, I mean, do you want to stop her as she's talking? I'm following you on my other computer, so, and taking notes. So perhaps
Some of us better to stop her before we get so much
Okay.
That's a lot of notes to take it, you know. If
Well,
it's okay with you.
I think the first one is the largest, and then the other things are more housekeeping to go along with the first vote. Am I right? That's how kind of I read it on my reports.
Correct. The very first action items, so going through the agenda and get into more detail as we go through with the request, but the first item on the agenda is to revise and make amendments to the comprehensive plan to make sure that that aligns with the request. Again, should you consider that and move forward. So because if you go to the next steps for the zoning map amendment, one of the criteria is that it complies with the comprehensive plan. So, and again, those provisions in there are that annexation boundary, the growth framework map, as well as the future land use map. So that's action item 1 on the agenda, and then moves forward to almost like the domino effect. Then the next step would be the Buckwalter PUD text amendment to create that land use tract. Then the zoning map amendment, where we have the designation of the density, that commercial allocation, as well as the residential units that they're requesting. And then the development agreement amendment, and then the concept plan amendment. So those are the different action items. So it is a little bit of housekeeping, but more substantial.
Why don't we stop for questions? And then if you're going to address it in a further down portion of it, just tell us to hold on and you'll get to it at that point. How about that?
Okay.
Because I think the first part is the most lengthy one. So are there questions of Heather at this point before she jumps into the second part of this? And we have Walter, we have some members of the church committee that can answer as well as Heather.
Somebody else go first.
And I'm happy to keep moving forward, and you just interrupt me or wave me on.
Well, I've got questions, but I was hoping somebody else would go first also.
Well,
Okay,
if y'all have questions, you should ask them.
Okay, I'll go first
There you
since they're scared and they want me to
I'm not scared, Fred.
carry them on my shoulders.
Go, Fred.
All right. The couple of things that sticks out at me that I need clarification. Number one, it's my recollection that we was trying not to go outside of our growth frame map, and this clearly states tonight that this is outside of that growth frame map. The other concern I have is we have been frowning on most annexations that come to Bluffton from the county that appears to want to upzone, and it's and I have an issue with anyone that says they're going to get more from Bluffton than they can get from the county. Then some of the conditions or recommendation that Planning Commission made also concerns me, that council and most of our boards and commission are not on the same page or the same agenda, because we should all be dancing from the same sheet of music at all times. These are things that they're supposed to have in their radar at all times, because that's the will of council.
Fred, can I jump in real quick? I hear noise. If y'all could mute while one person's talking. I don't know if it's Facebook I'm hearing in the background or something, but I was focusing on that and not listening to you. I'm sorry.
Not me.
Okay, well, let's all mute except for Fred.
Did you hear what I said at all, or what?
I did hear it. I just hear like a radio or something. Maybe it's you.
No, it's not me.
Okay. No, I heard it. I was going to let you finish. Okay. Was that a comment or question? Are you finished? You muted yourself.
I'm finished. Yes.
Okay. Any questions, anyone? Dan or Larry or Bridget?
Yeah, I guess I'll follow up with a question that Fred just mentioned. The upzoning part, I know we've had some annexations on the table here in the last not too long a while, and I've heard the will of the council was I'm not really interested in annexing for an upzoning, and some of those properties were kind of like surrounded by us, so I agreed to it. Even if it's not an upzoning, the way it looks, they can pretty much do, I don't know, they could do more in the town if they were in the town. I want to get Heather to go back to the yellow screen when we're looking at dollars, taxes. And I have a question also. When in my opinion, we first of all, the taxes here, I know are different for a religious institution property that's used strictly for that than residential or commercial and all that. There's a whole different bag of worms there. If this property is contiguous to the town, which it looks like it is, I don't see the difference in where Kroger is, the Belfair Village, where we and Westbury Park or not Westbury Park, but we still, I think I remember learning that commercial revenue comes back to the town anyway. If somebody wants to clarify that for me, I'm just trying to put sense to it, whether is it just for an upzone? Is it for the church to be able to sell those 10.6 acres for a lot more money than they could at it sounds like they want to sell it out to developers. I wouldn't imagine the church is going to develop the commercial property as a religious institution. So just a few of those questions. Any one or two or three of them that can be answered would help me understand better, so I can make a better.
Well, this is not in the town, so we would get no tax money from anything unless it's annexed. I heard you said, would we get
Commercial
money
property?
anyway? Yeah, no. If it's not in the town limits, we don't get that property tax revenue. Now we do at Belfair because Belfair was annexed into the town, the Belfair Plaza. But we do get.
Okay. I thought that wasn't in the town.
Belfair Plaza is in the town. Yeah.
Okay. Westbury Park is not.
Right.
The commercial part is and the residential part is not.
No. Belfair Plaza is the commercial parcel in front of Belfair and the Crescent. That is in the town. That was in the Buck Island Simmonsville annexation. Westbury Park and Westbury Commercial is not in the town. But Sheridan Park is and Plantation Park is, but not Westbury Park. It's two different things.
The Sheridan Park is in the town also?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If it's not in the town, we don't get revenue.
Well, I realize that, but I thought I'd learned and heard that if commercial property is built adjacent to the town owned or part of the town property, that there was a different mark.
But let staff answer it, but I know that's wrong. If it's not in the town, we don't get it, period. It's got to be in the town limits. But Heather, answer that. You're muted.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute.
Yeah, sorry
that's fine. It wasn't cooperating with me. No, so Westbury Park Commercial is in the town. Sheridan Park's in the town. Plantation Park, I think maybe we're probably referring to the same areas. Westbury Park Residential is not. Belfair Commercial, like Mayor stated, is in the town limits. So my understanding is the same. I'm not a tax expert, and I would defer to Chris Forrester of Finance, but I'm not aware if any rules about adjacency and whether or not we would get the revenues for that. So I'm not the best person to answer that question. What I will state as far as the background from what we have in the application, and I could scroll through these slides, but I don't want to keep scrolling
Yeah,
all over the
yeah.
place. There's so many slides. But what they're requesting is, so a little bit over 50-acre portion is for the expansion of St. Gregory the Great Catholic Church and their school campus. There's 0.057 acres for a pump station, and the remaining 10.1 acres, so that yellow area on the map that I had closer to the intersection is indicated for sale for out parcels for uses that they're proposing be permitted in that new St. Gregory the Great land use tract. I do have some, and I'm happy to pull those back up, but the list of different uses that are currently allowed in the county zoning, and then what they're requesting in if it were to be annexed in the town and in that Buckwalter PUD. So, and I apologize, that pump station's already there. That's there on that property. So you got pump station, church, campus, room for expansion, and then commercial out parcels. So what they're requesting is that commercial designation and then 150 residential dwelling units. The county's ordinance is a form-based code as well, so it's a little bit difficult to quantify exactly how much they could build without a site plan, but I do have, again, that list that I can scroll back to. And the proposal initially, when they first came to you for that intent to annex, was for a commercial, and that was a general mixed-use commercial zoning designation they were requesting. Now they're requesting to go into the Buckwalter PUD, which is required to put an assignment of some sort of density to it. And the request is, again, for a commercial component. The civic and institutional has 0 density, so they don't need a density. They're not required to have a density allocation per Buckwalter development agreement for the church and the school. And then they're also requesting for 150 dwelling units on that property. So that's where some of the differences in land use pertains to. I would, rather than speculate, maybe the applicant can better explain why they're requesting to be annexed into the town. The uses are different. Coming into Buckwalter, they are requesting a very specific density allocation as well as residential dwelling unit allocation, which is different than they have currently. They don't have that under the county's ordinance. So that is different. There are certainly uses that are not allowed. Apologize for all the scrolling, but it's a lot of information here. But I think these tables may help with the questions about upzoning. So here, again, is the different uses as far as that Beaufort County, the C3 neighborhood mixed use district, and then the request itself. So you can see, yes, there are a lot of instances where the Ps, there's permitted in the same column, and then there's some where it's a conditional and a P in the permitted in the town. So residential would be permitted under their current zoning in the county. And again, that they're requesting that same use be permitted, but again, the allocation is, right now I can't quantify what that allocation number would be, but they're requesting, again, 150 dwelling units be assigned. The commercial is slightly different. You'll see in this next area right here, where it talks about retail, taverns and nightclubs. They're still not allowed currently. It would not be allowed if it moves forward, but there are some things as far as general retail here that would be permitted. Outdoor sales, a coffee shop with drive-through, and here's some more office and services as well that you'll see the P. And then furthering down to some daycare, lodging, and things like that. So
Heather, let me jump in real quick.
I got one more question, Dan, and I'm gonna shut
Well,
up.
I was just gonna say, this is pertaining to you, Larry. On that list, yesterday, I counted about 20 items that would not be allowed by the county. So it is upzoning. It is upzoning.
yes.
Okay, my last question for you, Miss Heather. Sorry to be a pain, but
No, not a pain at all.
got to clear my mind. The commercial is 10.06 or whatever, the 10.03, whatever that number was. The
10.1.
the campus expansion for the church is the other 50 acres right? 50.0, whatever.
Yes.
Okay. What happens with, where are those 150 units going?
Where would they be building the residential? I don't know. We don't have a master plan, although maybe this would
So-
help. Sorry.
So that's what I'm confused about.
Here we go.
You know, if 10 acres commercial is cut and dry, I understand that. 50 acres of expansion for the church, I understand that. Where are the 150 homes going to be built?
Well, the other thing that it could be, again, moving forward is on here, you'll see, well, I don't believe it's on here. If they were to do a hotel units would be again, if this moves forward, would be permitted, and the density for a hotel unit is half a dwelling unit. So I would defer to the applicant. Again, we don't have, the initial master plan. They're not at that stage yet to know where that would go, or if that's even in the future. However, it could also be a hotel for, could be ultimately a 300-room hotel. It's what it could be. But right now, we don't know. But it would be in this commercial tract. All of
So
that.
it would be a part of the 10 acre,
Yes.
but you wouldn't build you wouldn't build residential units in a commercial zoned area, or you would? I'm just asking.
I
I'm
don't
trying
know.
to get,
They
I'm
could.
trying to figure out
Why don't we ask the
everybody wants what they
applicant?
want.
Why don't we ask the applicant, Heather,
Sure.
what their intention was with that?
Sure. Did you want to do that now or move forward?
It's a Larry question. I would get it answered.
Answer it, and I'll probably just be quiet.
Walter, are you on I can't see him on my screen, so I don't know if Walter's here.
I can't either. There he is. He popped up.
I unmuted. Thank you, Mayor and members of council, and certainly thank you, town staff, for all the hard work that you've done on our application, which is very complicated, and we very much appreciate the comments and questions that we've received from Mr. Hamilton, Mr. Toomer, and Mr. Wood, and welcome any other questions. Let me say initially that the why question, I think that came from Mr. Hamilton. The why question is that if you ask a parishioner as they're leaving Mass on a Sunday morning where they live, they would say they live in Bluffton. And so many, if not all of the ministries of the church are Bluffton centric. They're all involved in Bluffton. The church community believes that it is a part of Bluffton. And frankly, the church wants to actually be part of Bluffton. There is a number of items that are listed in the land use type or the comparative chart. We worked very hard to try to limit the various uses, understanding the town's reluctance to approve something that appears to be or is actually upzoning. There was no desire on behalf of the diocese to try to escape some problem in Beaufort County and get a better benefit by being in the town other than being in the town. For instance, the residential density. There's no plan, and it would not be a good plan to try to squeeze any residential density in the neighborhood commercial area. However, there is the opportunity in the future for a retirement home for clergy of the diocese. And a retirement home such as that would consume residential density. In addition, there might be an opportunity in the future for a dormitory associated with the school or associated with some of the ministries of the church. And to have such a dormitory within an area that's designated or zoned for civic uses, it would consume the residential density. So the primary goal in having the residential density are for uses that are associated with the church and the school activities. We see the neighborhood commercial area, and we tried to make it similar to, because along the US 278 corridor, there's little to compare it to if you're going into Buckwalter, other than Buckwalter or perhaps the Bluffton Town Center, which has been discussed as part of the town of Bluffton and the uses that are available in that district. The land use type chart has a lot of PCPs, which is a requirement that that in the county, that the development or the plan for development be in a plan. So you have to, as part of a traditional community plan, you may be able to do those things. In addition, there are conditions for particular uses. It's impossible for us at this point to create conditions in the town's ordinance. We tried to come up with a list of uses, and we did so frankly because that's what we heard from council when we met with you in 2019, that the general mixed use commercial was not an appropriate designation because it had too much. And so we went through this process and endeavored to scale down as much as we felt was appropriate, not understanding what the future will bring. And therefore, we tried to make it a land use tract in the Buckwalter PUD that was related to or similar to other planning tracts in the Buckwalter plan PUD, but also tracts within the town. I recognize the phrase upzoning is one that I believe is not defined in the ordinance. It's kind of the vernacular of the discussion about annexation. The diocese really wants to be in the town. The diocese is not looking for the town to give it something that it can't otherwise get from the county. I don't know that I could say it any better than that. The purpose of the annexation is not to derive some other benefit. Those out parcels are not contemplated right now for church uses. And so in an effort to come up with an appropriate plan, with an appropriate zoning district, we provide opportunities for that area. And we would welcome any discussion about maybe something is not an appropriate use, because the primary goal here is to annex the church.
Follow up on that for people to think of, saying that, Walter, and hearing you say you want to do what you could do in the county. Maybe it's a Heather question. Is there a way to manipulate this land use map to coincide what could currently be a C? I think a C is a P. I've never seen anyone with a C ever get it denied, but a TCP, a C, or a P would be the same use as we would incorporate, and that cleans it up and keeps it from the thought of upzoning for somebody who may buy a parcel down the road. Not that the church intends to do it, but the end user of some of this land. Just a question.
I'd stay with that. So the Walter just addressed it a little bit, but in the county where you see the TCP, that's the traditional community plan. I will admit I'm not well versed in understanding exactly what all is entailed as part of this. It's a county requirement as far as how that mixes and conditions and lots of what if scenarios that, I would certainly, if you have questions, move forward and explore that, but I don't have the answers to exactly what that is. In the towns column, if there's a C, it's again, conditional use approved, but the TCP in that county column is a traditional community plan, which I believe, I know Walter is more familiar with this, is working in the county more, but like a planned area and what those conditions are. So I don't know, again, a lot of what if scenarios with, specific plans, but the TCP, and it most likely does have, yes, lots of conditions tied to it, but the C in the towns column here, which I don't see any on this page.
I understand all those, and I understand those definitions, but to jump to it, why couldn't we just eliminate the dash marks off the uses and keep everything apples to apples? I'm not asking what CMP and TCP mean. I understand those, but if we have a P, industrial, artisan workshop, it's not allowed in the county, it is allowed here. So perhaps if it's not allowed in is there a way to trim it down, to use the uses that are the same in the county, so that shows there's no upzoning? That's what I heard Walter say. Can we do that? Or do we have to adopt all of these uses with this annexation?
You don't have to adopt all of these uses. This is part of their request with the with the tract that's being created and what uses would be allowed in that this new, because this would be a new tract of the Buckwalter PUD, so the St. Gregory the Great tract. So that was part of the exercise with going into Buckwalter PUD versus just that general mixed use, because if it's general mixed use, you get everything. You know, you get whatever comes with general mixed use. By going into the PUD, you can customize it and change it and what's applicable for the property. So it can be changed.
So it could be done when it's an then it's just across the board zoning, not what somebody said was an upzoning. If we work together, which I wish we could have worked together before we saw it, on the uses, but and we've done this with another project before, and I don't remember exactly where that was, but where you say, oh, sorry.
You certainly can do that while you're sorry. Do that. That's
you won't hear dogs barking in January. So that was just my question. And I know Dan, I didn't mean to jump in front of Dan's question, but anyway, okay.
yes, that's certainly an option. I don't know what the applicant, if they go through that list again, if it all matches or not. I obviously have to defer to Walter and his clients, but this was what was that initial proposal for your consideration this evening. But yes, it can be changed.
I'll let
Heather,
you want to
Heather,
get jump in with a question real quick, Larry? And
sure, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just get everyone a chance. Dan.
Yeah, I was going to go back and thank you, Lisa, for your creativity there. Fred's first question was a philosophical question. And I have to admit, that's left me confused because I'm not opposed to annexation per se, but we just went through some episodes recently where we couldn't even collectively as a group put a motion on the table. And so, I've always been a strong believer in trying to close up the areas within the boundaries, especially the donut holes or anything like that. So, I get Fred's question loud and clear because it's left me wondering myself, where are we as a council philosophically on what we're trying to achieve with any annexation? The second part is with what you just said, Lisa, that could be a game changer if we can accommodate that thinking, because then it's matching apples to apples somewhat, and we would feel more comfortable with it. The other parts of it, the 150 RDU units, I understand what they're trying to do with that, I think, but there's no guarantee, as has been illustrated tonight, that those 150 units would ever be utilized. They don't have to use those 150 units. That would be in the package. That would be maybe attractive to somebody wanting to purchase a portion of that land as a tool. Again, the hotel could actually eat up the units or something else. So there's no guarantee, even though from 446 or whatever the number was down to 150. I mean, I get it, but it's not a guarantee. And then you got to get back into the issues with the 150 units. Walter, you were talking about, a retirement place for ministers or clergy or whatever, which, or maybe some kind of dorm housing. And all the development agreements we've been doing lately, we have that affordable workforce housing component to it, which was mentioned by Planning Commission, of about 20% of the units. Of course, they used a 10-year term. Our term is usually longer than that. And then the other issues that couldn't be addressed, traffic impact analysis would have to be done at the time, buffers. And one last thing too, I'm very curious about is for clarity for me, if we ever did something like this, the Buckwalter PUD actually, or the development agreement allows for storage facilities practically anywhere. And so I would like to be sure that there's not one, I couldn't tell whether one would be allowed there or not. I would be opposed to anything like that. Anyway, that's my thoughts. Fred's was philosophical. I agree with where Fred's mind is at on his comments. But Lisa, you've added a whole new twist to it that I would like to see played out.
And real quick on this actual page, mini warehouse and self-storage is not allowed on either. So it's already scratched through. It's like 8 from the bottom on the screen.
Thank you. I missed it.
No, I was just reading through it. And the units, you use it, they could not sell anything, right? I thought you said that, Heather.
Correct. The proposal is that if they don't use these units on this tract, they can't be transferred elsewhere. So the only way that they could transfer elsewhere is if the development agreement was modified yet again and amended. But the units and the density, all of that is specifically allocated to this tract and cannot be transferred.
Thank you. Okay. Bridget hasn't asked anything. Larry, you sounded like you had another question.
Does Bridget have one? I don't mean to jump in.
I've lost Bridget on my screen. I know she's here, but Bridget,
Okay,
do you have anything?
I just got one more. So since we can't decide and they don't know and they want to be a part of the town because of the congregation wants to feel like they're a part of Bluffton, is there not a way to annex the property into the town of Bluffton? And when they decide what they want to do, come back to us and say, you know, we want to do this. Zoning changes, you know, like lots of properties ask for zoning changes before we promise to do, I don't know if that's possible. Is it possible that they could just say, we're a church, we own 60 acres of land, we're thinking about doing something, but we don't know what it is, and we want to be a part of the town, like Walter just said. We want to feel like we're in Bluffton, so is that possible?
Councilman Toomer, this is Terry. It would be my pretty firm opinion that if you were going to annex the property, that the zoning should be done at the time of the annexation as opposed to some future time. That's the way we've always historically done it. I believe that is the only way to really get it done properly.
Okay.
Larry, were you asking about annexing the whole entire parcel or just the church parcel? I didn't quite understand what your question was.
Well, they own the entire
Right.
60 acres, right?
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but yet we don't know what they want to build, if they want to build. I mean, I've just heard so many things. I'll get off of it. I don't know. I don't have the answers. I'm just unsure about what it is they want to do, other than us being pretty adamant about no upzoning in our last few situations, and I'm just unclear. Nobody's fault.
No, I understand. I have a question, but I'll jump in. Bridget, did you have anything right now, or did you want to see more
Yeah,
for presentation?
I just had one question. With the response that Heather gave in terms of the 150 units being untransferable, is that also including it being captured by the town to be able to use for future uses like affordable housing if needed?
You mean to transfer it in our bank if it wasn't used? Okay. Walter has his hand up. I don't know if he has the answer. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. And Ms. Frazier, the draft amendment to the Buckwalter Development Agreement currently states, and what was proposed is that these 150 residential density units are non-transferable except to the town of Bluffton. So the answer to the question, yes, if the church doesn't use them, they can be transferred to the town of Bluffton for town uses.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Wood.
I want to ask Walter again for clarity. But there's no, the 150 units can be written into it, but it doesn't mean that the 150 units would ever be built. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, sir.
And then going back to Larry's question, in which Terry jumped in, I wouldn't imagine anybody would want to annex into the town blindly without zoning to know what cards are being dealt before they annexed in. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, sir. I mean, that's to annex, as Mr. Finger said, to annex, there has to be a zoning classification. Initially, the thought was that general mixed use commercial, because that allows civic and institutional uses would be appropriate. But that would bring in things like warehouses and self-storage. So the request was, let's annex into Buckwalter and come up with a specific designated planning tract that would have a list of uses and densities that would be amenable to the town, that the town would believe are the appropriate uses for that particular tract once this land becomes a part of the town. And we don't know what those uses are. And it's not just COVID. No one knows what those uses might be in the future. And so land planners and land use attorneys are left with trying to make recommendations to municipalities and councils that this is a good use, that this is a good set of uses. But I can say that the diocese, the applicant here, is open to that discussion. And I have some ideas about how we have that discussion. This is not the final reading on all of this. And I think to follow up with what Heather said, that we just have to figure out how we have the opportunity to go back into this chart and talk about it. I mean, artist studios that might not be allowed in, or artisan studios that might not be allowed in the county. I don't know whether or not those are things that the town might want in this particular planning track. So having that kind of input and having that kind of dialogue, I think would be very helpful to the diocese as it moves forward. But we would want the opportunity to do that as opposed to not moving forward.
Yeah, so for my last comment, so what I think you're saying is the mayor's suggestion, there's room for flexibility to reevaluate the uses to see if we can come up with compatibility for both the town of Bluffton and your client.
Yes, sir.
Good.
Okay. Any other questions? So what I hear, and I know okay, no more questions on this. Do you want to move on to the other areas just to do the presentation, Heather?
Sure, and I'll try to, a lot of it may have already been discussed. So let me try to get back to where we were. So we talked about the comp plan amendments that are requested, revisited the annexation criteria a little bit, talked about the text amendment request, which is that St. Gregory the Great land use tract. Again, that zoning map amendment. Again, this is just the criteria, all the different things that are now analyzed as part of the request. This again is that request that we've been discussing, the general commercial and the residential dwelling units. And again, just that review criteria here. And then this is, so then fast forwarding to if it were to become part of the Buckwalter PUD and ultimately the Buckwalter Development Agreement, there's also that concept plan that goes along with each of the development agreements and the PUDs. So it would also require an amendment to that concept plan. So this would incorporate that area, the 61 plus acres of land as part of that concept plan. And again, review criteria here as far as how that's reviewed and addressed, going through the criteria. And that's really, those are all the applications. Just to summarize, I know this is really little information. This is little and probably difficult to read on the screen, but so we are here at first reading right now. And again, should it move forward, there is the next steps after first reading would be a second reading and public hearing on the items. And that's when the annexation request would also come back to you, because if you recall, that already had first reading. So now we're at first reading of all the other associated applications. And then obviously, like I said, you've got that final reading and the public hearing for all of that. In addition to that, moving, again, if all of this were to move forward, and as the discussion progressed about the different land uses and densities and things like that, there would also be an initial master plan that would be required for this tract prior to any development. So there would be the initial master plan that would go before the Development Review Committee, Planning Commission, and then ultimately you all for your review and for your consideration and ultimate approval. And then the further detailed development plans that are reviewed by town staff and Planning Commission. So there is lots more process and things like that going through after if the annexation moves forward, as well as the that zoning change. Again, this is just all of the different applications that we have on the agenda this evening. They do all require a motion and separate action because they are all separate action items. And like I said, if you have any questions, I have the motions. Should you move forward to entertain that, to be able to pull up. So however you'd like me to stop or any more detail, I'm happy to do so.
Well, I have a question on process. And I've just heard Dan seem to like what Walter said. I liked what Walter said. If this were a motion that passed, what is it needed to put in there that we, between first and second reading, we'd have a group together? Perhaps we could give our thoughts to one of our council members and council could sit in with it. I think we all could look at those uses, to see what we would like to see. I mean, it's funny. I know that church has I guess a crematorium is considered a cemetery, but the county says they don't allow cemeteries. So some of this we need to make sense of. Home office, I think that'd be or business, live, work, there are a lot of things I think could work there. Do you want to see a car wash? Probably not. Definitely not a storage facility. So could we work with staff, a member of council to represent us, to sit with them on the uses between first and second reading?
I think we could. I defer to
anybody.
If there's any legal things we need to add or include in that, as well as the applicant, but I think certainly that is something that we definitely could move forward with the applicant and work together to bring back any additional answers or information or that you need to move forward.
This is Terry. I think that there's a realistic opportunity to meet with the applicant, to pare down the list if necessary. We might get, with Heather's benefit and Mark's benefit, maybe get creative enough along with Walter to have a retirement clergy home. Might even fit under our institutional definition. So we don't have to have a whole lot of residential density allocated towards that. If you gave first reading approval to this set of items tonight, if there were material changes between first and second reading, we'd have to go back to a first reading again, and it would add a month to the already lengthy process. But I think a meeting with a council member, Heather and her staff, probably Mark, be happy to be involved in it with Walter and his folks. I think we could probably alleviate a lot of the concerns that council has expressed tonight. So I throw that out there.
So are you saying that is a material change, or could we put it in our wording of first reading conditioned upon our meeting before second reading on uses? I don't know.
If tonight you gave first reading approval and you gave the zoning map amendment and gave first reading to a zoning designation, we then went and modified it in some significant fashion. I believe it would require going back to first reading and then another second, even though you conditioned it in your motion.
So what do you say? So what is your thought?
My thought would be is to give first reading approval to each one of these items tonight. And we already have the commitment from Walter and his and the applicant that they would be happy to meet with us. We can meet with them. It's a tough time of year to do a lot of meeting. It's a tough COVID type of year to do meetings, but I think if we could get some time, express our concerns, I believe that with Walter's expertise and Heather's expertise, I believe we could come up with an amended list of uses that would pass muster with council. Walter, am I speaking out of school?
Walter had his hand up. Walter.
No, sir, and I was just going to comment, I agree with Terry, and I would suggest, to the extent that the list is changing, things are being dropped. And so I don't think that we would trigger that materiality provision that Terry notes, but I do note that and agree with Terry that's a concern. But we are certainly willing to do that and look forward to the opportunity. We will make ourselves available. Again, town staff has been excellent to work with throughout this process. It's a complicated application because these are all necessary steps just for the annexation. So we appreciate the opportunity to do that and are willing to do that.
Okay.
And Walter may be able to convince me that dropping as opposed to adding uses or modifying uses would not be a significant change. It would be in the town's best interest. He may be able to convince me that it's not a significant change. We could go directly to second reading. I would hold that answer in abeyance pending our discussions.
How is council? What is council's thoughts on that after you heard Terry? I guess we'll know on the motion.
Would you like me to pull up the motions?
I'll speak up, Mayor.
Yes, Lair.
I wish that all these things could be hashed out before it comes to us. Not saying, Heather, I know you've been working hard and this is the process and all like that. I just wish that, we could have a little better understanding on what we're voting on. Right now, this is kind of like where we are. And my second thing is, what is the urgency? If it does take another month or 2 months or whatever, if we don't even, if the property owners are not even sure what they want to do or what they're going to do, what does, whether it's this month, next month, or, 3 months, 6 months down the road, once we get all our I's dotted and T's crossed, what is the difference?
Well, I can
that's
speak,
just my opinion.
I can speak on an agenda, just overall agenda. We've got heavy agendas for the next year and meeting it's in the queue to deal with this month. We can push it off next month, but it just pushes it into the queue of UDO changes and long meetings, which fine, they're all important, but just trying to manage the agenda with Mark and his staff and what's a doable time where people aren't checking out on us, in a lengthy meeting, and it's time on staff. So to say it's first reading on anything, I'm sure they'd rather wait till January than get a first reading turned down. But the first reading just gets Heather moving on to make these changes to get to second reading and it not be a lengthy presentation, which we'll have to do in January if we push this off. That's just my thought, trying to keep these agendas lighter and manageable and not put too much work on staff during this time. So
sure. And I totally understand all that. I'm not trying to, I just like to make good, clear decisions. And when I say yay, I like to feel good about it. Yeah. And I'm a little confused on this. Thank you.
And when we had our workshop, it was a while ago, but because of our activity level, it's just gotten to the point it's risen. Should we have addressed it at the workshop? I think so, but we as a council did not. So a little bit's on us. But maybe we can ask the applicant, we can ask Heather. Those are just my thoughts looking at every month agenda, not this particular project. Walter, do you want to address Larry's question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mayor. The process is actually the process under the town's ordinances. So, And the town ordinance is not only the town ordinance, but also state law. So this is the process. And when an applicant is looking at this kind of an idea, it works through the process and it follows the process. There's not any particular urgency other than it was 2019 when we started, and we don't want to get continue to get delayed because time equals money, and there are other things that have to take place to get to the master plan approval, survey work, changes to the actual plans themselves. So there are other consultants and other things that get triggered, which all fall in place under the ordinance. Those are all the required steps under the ordinance. And it is very complicated because it's a very important decision for council to make, and it's up to the applicant to have that requisite information. But I'm glad to discuss the process and what may or may not be necessary. And I hope that I've answered that question. It's just there's not any particular urgency other than it started in 2019.
Mayor, can I get a question in?
Sure, Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you. The affordable housing component of this is under any new development that comes to the town has to require 20%. But the Affordable Housing Committee also requires that be, I believe, 25 years, 25 years. And we also need to understand that there's a component of the EMI that we will request. So I would like for this to be vetted through the Affordable Housing Committee before we make a commitment to the terms on the affordable housing component.
Well, Fred, y'all have already made those recommendations of percentage, and if a development doesn't build housing, I think we just got to get those ordinance passed through y'all's recommendations. I don't understand why this would go.
No, because earlier, the Planning Commission made a recommendation that's not in line with affordable housing.
Okay. Well, I mean, we can put it, we don't have to take that. We can put, if there's any housing, then we put what our ordinance that we voted on says and our UDO. I didn't understand the question from planning. I watched the thing last week and I'm fine with any affordable housing to do what our council voted on, but I don't think this goes to Affordable Housing Advisory Committee.
I agree, Mayor. Again, our standards are in existence, and again, he may not even do it. So until he gets ready to do it, then that's when the discussion would take place. He'd have to get approval.
Right. But in any motion, if this goes forward, is if there is a housing, then we must have another look at it, and we must require the limits that we voted on, the 20%, the number of years, and the LMI, because that's already been voted on by the town.
If I could,
Mm-hmm.
can I add? This, I believe what the reference is there were some changes that were approved and codified as far as the percentage of affordable units that must be included in any new or amended PUD that had a housing component. This application was submitted prior to those changes. However, obviously defer to council and your decision as far as what's approved, but I believe that's the reference to the ordinance requirements as far as affordable housing and what must be included in a PUD, if that helps.
Yeah. So a question I don't think was answered, and I know the process is the process. If it's something that we can get together with on the uses, would y'all rather, and Larry said it, we could vote on first reading, work on the uses, get the clean package on second, or Larry had suggested pushing it to January. And y'all heard my reasoning for the agenda struggle that we're having. with ordinances and code re-edits that we're asking staff to do. So is there a comfort level to meet, and one of y'all can raise your hand and volunteer to work with them if you'd like?
I'm comfortable with the a first reading, because there's nothing that says the second reading, you know, we've had this discussion before. It doesn't mean that the second reading has to take place next month.
Right.
That allows the time for the modifications to be presented back to council before the second reading. Is fair assessment?
Heather? Was that a fair?
Sorry, yes, it is. And we actually, we had in there, I believe, a 2-month schedule to make sure that we comply with the public notice, get those packets together and get everything to you all.
Okay.
The other part is if we didn't approve it tonight, I mean, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Then we got to go through every bit of this again for a first reading. So.
And not that it isn't not a very important thing to learn. I'm just looking at timing, and I'm very content with saying no the second go around if there's some reason an applicant wants a warehouse and we don't, or if somebody, you know, that's where I think we can roll up our sleeves and make it a good project if that's what we want. Everybody, any other questions? Well, I'm going to start with, I'll start with first. Is there a motion to approve on first reading of the ordinance approving an amendment to the Town of Bluffton comp plan to amend the future annexation map to include approximately 61,093 acres of land located at 323 Fording Island Road with the tax numbers written in the packet, and change said property's future land use designation from civic, institutional to medium density commercial?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor state by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Number 2, a motion to approve first reading of the ordinance approving an amendment to the Buckwalter Plan Unit Development text to incorporate provisions for a new land use tract to be known as the St. Gregory the Great Tract. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor state by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. The third item, is there a motion to approve first reading of the ordinance approving a zoning map amendment for approximately 61.093 acres of land located at 323 Fording Island Road, tax numbers listed on the packet, as Buckwalter Planned Unit Development?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor state by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Number 4, is there a motion to approve first reading of an ordinance approving amendment to the is that the one I've already read? No. To approve on first reading of the ordinance approving an amendment to the Buckwalter Development Agreement to add approximately 61.093 acres of land located at 323 Fording Island Road, tax numbers on the agenda, and increase total allowed development rights by 10.03 acres of general commercial and 150 residential dwelling units, subject to the condition of the inclusion of provision noting that due to the COVID-19 pandemic, it is not feasible to conduct an accurate traffic count at this time, and requiring that a traffic impact analysis must be submitted prior to the issuance of any new development permits for the St. Gregory the Great Tract.
So moved.
There a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Question
Yes, sir.
for Terry. I don't know whether this is the one or one of the ones that happened a moment ago, but Heather had mentioned the fact about a concept plan or verbiage to that effect. In other words, we might not wholeheartedly accept the Buckwalter Development Agreement without, a change or modification. If we don't alter this this amendment or this what we're trying to do here to approve this, does that make for a major change, Terry, or would it not?
It would, Councilman Wood, it would depend on what the negotiations with the applicant. What we've done is we've gone from, yes, we think the annexation is good. In order to do the annexation, the first motion was we have to expand our future land use map. So we couldn't even we couldn't annex without doing that. We then had to amend the Buckwalter PUD because this property was not in the Buckwalter PUD. So then we had to amend the development agreement, which is the motion right now. So we're getting more, we're getting to a more refined level each time we're coming down with these motions. So in order to get to the concept plan, we'd have to amend the development agreement. So that's a long answer to a short question. Again, until we see what uses may be negotiated out or in or limited, I can't tell you whether there would be a material change or not. So long answer to a short question. With the traffic study condition that's tacked on here, that would give you some additional scrutiny at development time. Did that answer your question okay, Councilman Wood?
Thank you, yes.
Terry, could I add just one more clarification? It says 10.3 acres of general commercial and 150 residential dwelling units. Is that and or, I mean, when I asked the question, it was kind of answered that those could be in the commercial area. It kind of looks like two different, 10 acres of commercial and 150 residential dwelling units. I guess I guess we can address it later when that comes up. It's just a little confusing.
Yeah, the 150 dwelling units are not limited to the 10.3 acres. They are allowed within the 63 acres or whatever the total number is.
That was my question that I had earlier.
Because the majority of it now is
Larry, are you with,
institutional.
wait a minute, wait. I don't know if Larry's here. He just timed out. Larry? I'm sorry, Terry.
No
I
problem.
think something happened to him. I don't know if he can hear us or not. Do you want to answer best you can? And
Yeah, Heather, I am correct that the 150 dwelling units are throughout the 60 acres. They're not limited to the 10 acres commercial. Am I not correct?
You are correct. And I apologize if I misspoke while answering a question. So, and it all depends on how they use those residential dwelling units. So if it's assisted living for clergy or a dormitory, it could be on that civic piece where the school campus is. If it's in the form of a hotel, it would have to be on that commercial area because a hotel's a commercial use. So it definitely gets complicated. The 150 units could be throughout, throughout the entire site. It just depends on how they develop the 150 units. And the 10.03 acres of general commercial is, again, how we measure commercial density in the Buckwalter tract. And that's only limited to those front parcels.
And I've got Larry on my phone. Larry, did that answer your question?
Yeah, pretty much. So basically they could build 150 houses encompassing anywhere on the existing 50 acres. Anywhere they want to.
That is correct.
But if you look at that plan, a lot of that 50 acres has already been built on. So the ELSA has to fit on what's left.
Right. And we would also, sorry.
That's all I'm asking is give us a little better idea other than 150 houses, 150 units somewhere.
That was my big question, but I'm good.
Okay, did y'all hear Larry? His computer, Zoom left him. Okay, we've had a first and second. Any other discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. And then are we on number 5? Is there a motion to approve first reading of the ordinance approving an amendment of the Buckwalter Planned Unit Development Concept Plan to incorporate approximately 61,093 acres of land located at 323 Fording Allen Road, same tax map numbers, subject to a new St. Gregory the Great land use tract, subject to the condition of the inclusion of a provision noting that due to COVID-19 pandemic, it is not feasible to conduct an accurate traffic count at this time and requiring that a traffic impact analysis must be submitted prior to the issuance of any new development permits for St. Gregory the Great tract. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That's unanimous. How do we want to get with who can sit with? I printed that and I'm kind of marking through mine. I would like council to mark through these uses and see maybe what we don't allow, maybe we should, and what we do allow, maybe we shouldn't, and at least get a starting point. And we'll get with somebody. I'm fine with whomever. And I think Zoom is great with 4 or 5 people and put things on the screen and really spend about an hour or so on it. So I'm open to anybody who'd like to be part of that.
Fred
y'all
would like
can
to be
just-
part of that.
Fred would like to be part of it. Is everyone okay with Fred representing us? I am, Larry is, Dan is, Bridget. So can we get what we think and get that in an email to Mark, and Mark can get it to the group? Great. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Next, we have.
Thank you, Walter.
Thank you, Walter, and thank you for the group that came. I guess they've already gone. What number were we on, Lordy? Is that, are we through that? Consent agendas. So is there a motion to approve on consent agenda the 5 items that are listed, unless anybody would like to pull a subject out for more discussion? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. And is there a motion to go into executive session for 3 items? Contractual matters pertaining to the Bluffton's request for proposal 2024 to develop affordable and workforce housing on town-owned property. That's a FOIA Act 3470A2. Contractual matters regarding Buckwalter Place, multi-county industrial park. That's FOIA 3470A5. And matters relating to the Don Ryan Center for Innovation in the city of Hardeeville, FOIA 3470A2.
So moved.
There's a second. I'll second. Any discussion? Will be action after executive session, Mr. Orlando, do you think, or whomever, Kim?
There may be, Mayor Salka.
Okay, there may be, and we will come back on if so. Well, we have to come back on to adjourn. Okay, all in favor, state by saying aye. Do we do this?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Aye.
opposed. We are in executive session.